Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Beth, and today's video is going to be all about one of the launches from the Pat McGrath Holiday 2022 collection. And that is it's very hard to actually read the writing here, the Divine Blush and Glow Cheek Palette in the Nude Venus variation. So if you're not aware, Pat McGrath released the promotional images of her entire collection, but she's been kind of releasing it in drips and drabs. So the first release on her website was the large 18-pan Mothership palette, not the 10-pan like this, but her holiday Mothership. And she also released the colored mascaras, which people had different opinions of. And then she released one of these blush palettes on the Sephora website. I believe it was for Rouge Early Access for a day before it was open to everyone. So I picked it up from Sephora, but there is another variation that hasn't gone on sale anywhere, either on the Pat McGrath website or the Sephora website. And the same day that she released this on the Sephora website, she also released those 5-pan eyeshadow palettes, which I have ordered but have not arrived yet. So I will be doing another video when those come in. But so far, this is the only piece of the collection that I have in my hands. So just to give you a little bit of information about this retails for $62, and I would say, if at all possible, of course, wait for either the Sephora sale or wait for Pat McGrath to have a sale on her website. She pretty frequently has sales up to 30%. So if you're not dying to get your hands on this as soon as possible, I would definitely suggest waiting. In this variation, by the way, the Nude Venus, it only has 2 new shades, so I'll go over those in a moment. And the Divine Rose variation, which is the other one, has a different color of packaging, and I believe that one has 1, 2, 3 new shades. Let's talk a little bit about this palette. So this is the outer carton, and it just says that you get a total weight of 20 grams or 0.70 ounces. It doesn't break it down by the type of shade or anything like that. And it looks like this was made in Italy, and it has an 18-month shelf life. And as far as ingredients, it looks like they do contain talc, but not carmine. At least I'm not seeing carmine. So when you open it, that is what the inner packaging looks like. And I wanted to talk a little bit about pricing and package quality and that kind of thing. So I think Pat McGrath kind of goes 2 directions with her packaging. You either get the really kind of heavy luxe packaging like this, which has its own drawbacks that I'll get to in a moment, but she either goes this route or she kind of cheaps out a little bit. So this does have some foiling on the cover, as you can see, which is really pretty. But if you look closer, hopefully you'll be able to see that this was, how it arrived out of the package. So there's a little bit of kind of, I guess, coverware, you could call it. And, there weren't any issues with the Sephora package or anything like that. I'm always a little nervous about how things are going to arrive, if they're going to be broken. But this, I think, was just the nature of how it was manufactured or how it was put into the outer carton. So for a $62 blush palette, you're getting 5 shades. And granted, Pat McGrath is a luxury brand. I just wish that maybe there was a little bit more care towards some of those details. I think a lot of people complained about the Bridgerton 2 blush collection, how it kind of felt a little cheap. And I do have the first Bridgerton blush trio that I can kind of share with you and compare. But yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that she does have so many sales, it kind of cheapens the brand a bit. And you're not, unless you're crazy like I am and other YouTubers and you want to get things as soon as possible, it's not really worthwhile to pay full price. It's much better to wait for a sale because odds are it will go on sale. And different brands I think have different pricing models. Either they're kind of everyday low prices, or they kind of set their prices a bit higher but then have discounts so you feel like you're getting a deal. It's all marketing, right? But I just wish that, again, there was a little bit more care to some of those details. One of the things I do like about having this type of blush palette though is that, like I mentioned, her other kind of plastic packaging, and granted this has like a push button closure, so it's not quite as luxe as I think the highlights or the quads, but still it has a nice mirror, and it is plastic. One of the biggest drawbacks with this, of course, is that the only way you can tell what the shade is from the outside is this tiny little writing here. So I actually keep the boxes, and they are nice boxes, so I don't mind holding on to them, but I tend to store them in their boxes so that I can just reference the name on the top, and that way, like someone said on Hope Mess's last Critical Sass Live, you're not spending your entire morning opening and closing all of your Pat McGrath blushes if you have multiple. So for me, I do see a benefit to having a single palette with multiple shades in it. And I personally like a blush palette or a face palette for the most part. I know some people feel like they never reach for them and they just prefer their singles. I think it just kind of comes down to preference and how you store your makeup, that kind of thing. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the package. So it does have a cover on the mirror, which you can see the mirror is of good quality. I'm just gonna leave the little plastic on there just to kind of cut back on the reflection. So like I said, this is the Nude Venus variation, and you get 4 blush shades and 1 highlighter. And of these 4 blush shades, the only one that is new is actually this one here, which is Divine Rose 3. So the blush I showed you in the full size is Divine Rose 1. Hopefully that gives you a good idea. I'll maybe do some swatches as well. I put swatches on my Instagram of these 2 shades if you'd like to kind of see some still pictures. But yeah, this is the original Divine Rose, and that is Divine Rose 3. The Divine Rose 2, in case you were wondering, is one of those duos that she released. So I did actually order that when I ordered the 5-pan eyeshadow palettes that she released for holiday. So when I do swatches of those palettes, I will also include some comparison swatches of Divine Rose 1, 2, and 3, just for your reference. But yeah, this is the only new blush shade. So if you have all of her original blushes, you may want to skip on that. So you can see the original Divine Rose is much more mauvier. The new Divine Rose 3 has a little bit more warmth in it. It's kind of leaning more into kind of a, I guess I would say a dirty peach. How do they describe it? She calls it a Coral Rose Demi Matte. So I think that's fair. She's really getting her mileage out of those Divine Rose shade names. I always think to myself that someone somewhere needs to create like one of those like auto name generators, like where the first name is, I don't know, the letter of your birth month, and the next word is your first initial. So, you know, Divine, Nude, Venus, all of these shades are going to be very prevalent in her range. And just for reference, the other 3 blush shades you get in here are Desert Orchid, which is a Bronze Rose Satin Pearl, and that is shade number 1, so this one here. And then we get 2, which is the one closer to the highlight on the bottom row there. This one is Nude Venus. That is a peachy pink satin pearl. And I'll pop up a picture of the original shade range that she launched with. So there's basically 9 shades of the originals. So this one is the 3rd shade. This one is the 2nd, so kind of pulling from that first trio of lighter shades. And then interestingly enough, this bottom shade here, Paradise Venus, this is the 9th shade. So that's kind of the darker trio. So we're just kind of going more with, I guess, the same color theme rather than whether it would be more appropriate for light or dark skin. Whether you like that or not is kind of up to you. But yeah, Desert Orchid, again, is the Bronze Rose Satin Pearl. Nude Venus is the Peachy Pink Satin Pearl. Divine Rose 3 is a Coral Rose Demi Matte. And Paradise Venus is a Terracotta Demi Matte. And this highlighter shade, by the way, this is called Sunset Nectar, and it is a cool golden pink. So I will swatch that for you as well. I found it interesting that she went with such a long highlighter. I kind of wish, honestly, that she had just put in 2 different highlighter shades, because I feel like most people don't go through that much highlighter. I think if she had finally launched with maybe a bronzer shade that people have been asking for, she would have broken the internet. But I guess she just decided to stick with the one formula. So that is what this Nude Venus palette looks like. Just for reference, the other one, Divine Rose. So the other palette is actually called Divine Rose, and the repeat in that palette is Divine Rose 1, which is this shade. I feel like she really should just name things differently, because Divine Rose as a name just kind of loses its meaning over time. So it's Divine Rose 1 and Electric Bloom, and that one is very heavily focused on the pink shades. So for that one, I do obviously have Divine Rose, and the Electric Bloom color looks fairly deep. The other shades that are new are Desert Orchid 2, Peony Rose, and the highlighter is called Nude Nectar. So lots of errors to the Divine Rose title going on here. So while I am talking about, I will be applying the Divine Rose on one cheek, by the way, and this new Divine Rose 3 on the other, just so you can get a sense. And then I will apply this highlighter. I might apply for the other cheek the highlighter from the Bridgerton trio. So this doesn't have any of the same blushes. This has Cherish, Nymphette, and Venus Nectar is the highlighter. So you can see with this one and some of her other holiday palettes, you had just another kind of round pan of highlighter. And the new highlighter, I think, is a bit lighter than the one from the Bridgerton trio, as you can hopefully tell, a little more kind of golden. So I was definitely happy to see that, and we'll see how it looks, of course, on my skin tone. This trio, by the way, if you were interested in it, I think it's currently on sale on the Pat McGrath website for $47, down from $52. So slight discount. The full-size blushes retail for $39 for 9.7 grams of product. So I think roughly half of what you get in this palette. This is 20 grams. So, you know, I think she does kind of save money by skimping on the packaging. So this is $39 for the single. You can get a deal if you buy 3. That would be $102. And the blush duos, like the Divine Rose 2 that I mentioned, those are currently on sale for only $31. You also get 9.7 grams of product in those. So those have come down quite a bit from their original launch. I think they've had kind of mixed reviews. Okay, so I think that is all I need to kind of talk about before we go into the application. So I think I'm gonna start off with my Rephr number 5 brush, and I did use Cinema Secrets on it earlier today, so it's a little bit blue tinged from that. And of course I have my trusty Sigma switch here to clean off in between. Okay, so I think I'm gonna start off on my right cheek. I'll use the original Divine Rose. Like so. So this would be, I think, a good, like, normal application of blush, but because I want you to be able to see it decently well, I'm gonna build it up a little bit. The camera kind of eats blush sometimes. And I do have a powdered face. I have contour and bronzer applied as well. All right, so getting the excess product off of that. And going into Divine Rose 3, it's helpful that she has the little diagram on it, because otherwise I think I would just be at a loss. All right, so I'll finally peel that off for you. Obviously it doesn't stand up or anything, which is fine, but it does have a nice big mirror on it. So let's see kind of how this does. I think this might be a, I always try to start off a little bit more light-handed and then build as necessary. It's always easier to add, harder to take away. So yeah, so there's definitely a tone difference there. But I think, you know, both are definitely kind of well suited towards my skin tone. And again, I'm trying to kind of go in a little bit lighter. This brush is kind of in the middle in terms of how densely it applies product. Like it's not a duo fiber, which I think would give you a lighter application, but for example, this rougher number 24 is a much kind of denser brush. So if I were to go in, for example, this is a good brush to reach for like the Flirtatious blush, because that one is so subtle. And you can tell with this one, I'm kind of stamping it a little bit more. I almost use this the same way that I use the bronzer brush from Rougher. So again, because I want things to show up decently well on camera, I think I do prefer a more buildable formula anyway. But taking the same brush and going in. So I think I'm happy with both of those. And if I didn't already say, I didn't have any of the other shades in this palette, so it worked out well for me. If I do purchase that second blush palette, obviously the Divine Rose shade would be a repeat. Okay, so I guess I will go ahead and apply this highlighter from this palette from the Bridgerton collection on this cheek. I think that was the Divine Rose cheek. Anyway, so I also purchased her like the standalone Bridgerton highlighter, the lighter one, but I think that's a different formula. So I think comparing it to the Bridgerton highlighter in the palette is probably the best comparison that I have. I know she's released other highlighters, but... And this is a Wayne Goss number 4 brush. That is pretty beaming right there. I might have to buff that in a bit. I was thinking this brush, when I purchased it, would be like a very good kind of pinpointed highlighter, but I think the more I use it, the more I feel like maybe I need to go a little bit smaller. I'm getting all confused when I look in the viewfinder. So really, they don't read all that differently on the skin, I don't think. I think what I'll do is I'll take this brush and just try to knock off excess. And I feel like I just need to buff this a bit. I think that's more to my taste anyway. But, you know, I'm glad you have a chance to really kind of see it in its full glory. I think somehow I got the blush lower on this cheek, which is kind of annoying me a bit. Like I said, I was trying to build up the color a little bit, so it might not be the most graceful application ever. All right, right, so yeah, that is going to do it for this little demo. I'm actually pretty happy with both of these. And just to swatch, I guess, all 4 of these next to each other, the blush shades. So yeah, so that last one, I mean, that almost veers into like contour territory for me. Like, again, I understand what she was going for. Those are the 4 blush shades all together. But I just don't know that the person who would get a lot of good use out of these shades would also get a lot of good use out of that shade. I mean, I think most people that are going to be buying this palette aren't makeup artists. I think what I might try to do now, just playing around a little bit, I'm gonna take this Rephr number 18 brush and go in. This almost looks a bit like Pat McGrath's blush brush, actually, now that I look at it. But I just want to see, tap some of that off. I just want to see what happens if I kind of concentrate it. That kind of works. Again, just kind of using a tiny bit and really just kind of focusing it. Yeah, not ideal. I think I didn't knock off my brush on this side, so it's kind of a little harder to blend out. All right, so I guess I could use that shade in a pinch. Maybe I could use it as an eyeshadow. I don't really want to mess up my eye look, so I'm pretty happy with it. I used the new Pat McGrath Mothership 10 Moonlit Seduction today. So basically I used those 3 mattes, these 2 shimmers, and this kind of celestial shade. So anyway, I am like physically incapable of making a short video. So I hope that was all the information you could want about this palette and determining whether to buy it or not. Of course, I'll have a link to Sephora where you can pick it up if you so desire. That is an affiliate link. And thank you very much if you do choose to support my channel by using my links. So that's gonna do it for now. Hopefully I will have the 5-pan palettes within a few days. So then we'll do some comparison swatches to the other Divine Rose blush in the Pat McGrath collection. So yes, that's gonna do it. I hope you will subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.